So welcome to HCRF board members. Welcome to COVID Talks with Dr. Platanias. This is session 15 with Dr. Platanias, and just after Thanksgiving, we have so much to be thankful for. We thank Dr. Platanias for being here to help us make sense of COVID and provide hope to cancer patients, especially during these difficult times. We are thankful to HCRF board members Eleni for coming together to help make a difference for cancer patients. And no doubt, we showed on November 14th that we are making a difference. We raised over $600,000 to support innovative, cutting-edge research at the Lurie Cancer Center. That's amazing, especially when you consider how many different times did we have to pivot and, do a virtual event. So we obviously made a difference, but our work is far from done. We will not stop caring about cancer patients. I know for myself that I think about all the loved ones that I've lost because of cancer, and even more that we're going to continue to lose unless we do something about this. I also think about the times when I used to work in a cancer hospital. I think about this time when there was these two little kids that would come with their mom after their dad had died of cancer for almost a month. These kids were convinced that their dad was still hiding in the hospital somewhere. They would search under the beds, in the elevators. It was heartbreaking. And I know that there are so many more stories like that. Today, Dr. Platanias, before we begin talking about COVID, can you please break down for us the vision of the Lurie Comprehensive Cancer Center? How does how does HCRF propel Northwestern to revolutionize clinical trials that can be provided to people in Chicago and beyond? And in general, talk to us about how HCRF, our foundation, has helped Northwestern become one of the top cancer centers in the country.
Did we lose him?
Oh, we can't hear you, Dr. Platanias.
You're on mute, Doctor.
Here we go.
There we go.
Thank you. So first of all, I want to thank you.
Did you hear Nicole's questions, Dr. Platanias?
Yes, I did. I just couldn't. So I want to thank you, Nicole, for your efforts and for everything you do for the foundation. Your contributions are amazing. Before I get into this, of course, I need to help. I need to thank every time we talk about HCRF, Eleni. This thing will not exist today. We would have done absolutely nothing if it wasn't for Eleni's, not only her vision, but her perseverance, her insistence, is unbelievable. So I'm deeply grateful to Eleni for everything. And I'm deeply grateful to the whole board, to all of you for all your contributions, whatever you have done, which I think is really important and impressive. So let me just start to just give you an update of how we do as a cancer center, because you asked how it's not. So for the first time in our history, we had the US News and World Reports a couple of months ago that came out, and we got the ranking of the Northwestern of the Cancer Center. It was the highest ever that we ever had. It was number 8 in the country as a hospital. That's not the research now, that's the clinical hospital. And this number is, you have to keep in mind that it's extremely difficult because we have all this Harvard Hospital, we have very dense competition. Harvard Hospitals, MD Anderson, Sloan Kettering, and they are all in this category, the different members, and we are there consistently now in the top 10 and now number 8. On the academic, on our research, and that's where the benefit of the Hippocratic Foundation has been profound. We have been reviewed by the NCI as exceptional with a ranking score that puts us in the top 5 centers in the country. It was really a remarkable success that reflects the strength and the depth of science that we have here in the Lurie Cancer Center. And and we are, of course, for years now, top program in Chicago and Illinois. Now, the Hippocratic Foundation has played a major role in the success of the Cancer Center, because it has been consistent, it has been impactful in areas that made a difference for us, and I'm just going to mention them, and that continue to make a difference. So the funding from HCRF has, up to this moment, supported the research work of about 25 investigators here, which is very significant, doing research and developing trials. So that's one part that it has done, is supporting innovative ideas. Many of them have talked to you. You have met some of them, but there are other ones that at some point we will introduce them to, who are also working with the support of HCRF. The support has also supported many different clinical trials. It should be, I don't have the exact number, but it's between 20 and 30 clinical trials, I think. And I just want to have the areas here is very variable, is very wide in all types of cancer, you know, trials in ovarian cancer, trials in leukemia, trials in lymphoma, trials in prostate cancer with Dr. Hussein, that some of them were really big deal trials, you know, see national impact, trials with androgen receptors, trials in breast cancer with Dr. Cristofanilli and Dr. Gradisar. And I'm going to introduce Dr. Cristofanilli. You should meet him. He's another major researcher we have in breast cancer. So, but the most important thing is that we had a lot of these projects, these pilot projects, high risk ideas that have already led to some concepts that we are developing in tumor immunotherapy. And some of them have resulted, as you know, in grant funding from the NIH. One example was Dr. Eckert, who was the recipient of the award last year. And the same with Dr. Salero, who was the recipient of the award this year. She also got a grant from NIH. So, you know, this work has had major impact. And we've been thinking, and we've been talking with Eleni and with Nicole, of how to get it to the next level. And one thing we want to do is, of course, to continue and expand and recruit more talent here in Chicago. But we also want to bring this innovative science that we do, these cutting edge clinical trials. We want to spread them around. We want to make them available to more people. So far, these trials are open downtown in Chicago at the Lurie Cancer Center. But, you know, this is, you know, something that we hope to bring it all over the Chicagoland as a first step, and then, you know, expand them out around the country. Some of them are national studies, but we can do in a more consistent way these innovative clinical trials that we do, and make them. And then it talks about global impact, and that's what we want to do. We want to have a serious impact in the fight against cancer. That has been the vision of Eleni and all of us. And the support has been remarkable for making that. So as a next step.
Just before you begin, I just want to clarify for everyone, this idea that clinical trials are provided to patients is so important, because there's a time when a patient goes through their treatments and then there's told that there's no other options. And it's clinical trials that provide hope for more options, right? And, you know, I think that's the fact that we're, you know, at the forefront of doing that is a big deal. Can you also explain to us what makes us unique as a hospital compared to other places that treat patients for cancer?
Yes. First of all, I want to say about the trials, there are two situations that we offer clinical trials to cancer patients. One situation is when there is effective treatment, but let's say the treatment cures 85%. There is always a 15% out there. So then we develop trials that compare the standard of care plus the standard of care with something else. And these trials are important too, because although most patients will be cured anyway with a standard treatment, the group that will not be cured will have a chance. But more important are the other trials, which is what you mentioned, Nicole. When people run out of options, there are cancers that treatment stop working at some point. And then the only hope someone has is to try an experimental drug. And that's exactly what, that's where new treatments come and, that save lives in the long run. And what we try to do here with the help of the Hippocratic Foundation is to bring innovative concepts from the lab to the clinic. And this is very expensive because you have to do research in the lab, and you have to, and it takes time too. To bring something from the lab into the clinic is very difficult. But we try to do it as fast as we can, and the support makes that possible. So this is all what's going on. But what you said is what makes Northwestern different. And I think there is something very unique here that places like Sloan Kettering or MD Anderson or Mayo Clinic do not have. What we have here, first of all, we are in a first-class city, world-class city in Chicago, and we have the best clinical operations. That's pretty established, that the hospital here is the best in the area, in all specialties, not just cancer. Is a very strong clinical operation. But what we have is we have a remarkable university that has some unusual scientific strengths. And things like physical sciences, engineering, bioengineering, chemistry. These are unusual, these are difficult fields that other places don't have. You cannot find that at MD Anderson, depth in these areas, nanotechnology, physical stuff. So, and what we have done is we have brought all this exceptional strength in difficult areas. We have linked them to our cancer efforts. And we have a partnership, we have an international institute for nanotechnology, and we are partners with them. And we have developed treatments with nanoparticles. We had a trial in brain tumors that we were using. That was the first time that nanoparticles were used to attack the tumor. So that's the unique thing that you were asking, Nicole. We have an amazing basic science portfolio here because of the university, both in Chicago and in Evanston, and we're linking with a strong clinical operation.
And I think that's what we always refer to the Hippocratic funding, think outside the box research, right? So that's where the think outside the box comes. It's also putting the input of the physics people, of putting the engineers together to also think on the molecular biology as well, right?
Yeah, yeah, of course, that too, but also just the regular researcher, giving them the opportunity to think outside the box, funding something that they don't need to compete with the bureaucracy of the federal funding, come up with an idea, in many cases utilizing these strengths, the engineering, physical sciences, in other cases utilizing other ones, genetics, epigenetics, immunotherapy. There are many different fields that we have.
In the summertime, you showed us a presentation about this plan to expand the clinical trials in different areas of Chicago. Northwestern's plan to do that. Now, do you think that plan could be a blueprint for other institutions to use? And that's why,
No, I think this is a plan, is a very expensive plan that will require significant philanthropy. And the reason we want to do this is because, again, we have a lot of good clinical trials coming from our science that we want to make it available easier, so people can, and also be able to treat more patients, in larger, have more impact in the area. And the good thing is that Northwestern has 10 hospitals right now that go far north, far west, northwest, a radius of about 3-4 hours drive. So, the concept there is to double the number of clinical trials that we do, innovative trials, so we can do more, we can offer it to more patients, because when they are only downtown, it's a limited number of patients we can get here. and it's much more difficult. And of course, we want to keep growing that after that, continue having, expanding the numbers and the area. And I think this is important because there are cancer patients everywhere, and we want to make sure we make available our best science to everyone. So.
Lastly, Dr. Platanias, can you tell us what's going on with cancer research right now during COVID? How is our money helping the cancer research?
So our operations here are full blown, okay? I'm here this moment in my office. If you walk in the lab, everybody's working. The only thing is that our offices are dark because the secretaries, we have them working from home. But our investigators are in the labs and working. And at the beginning, there was this closing for a couple of months because nobody knew what was going on. Now we know that if you wear masks when you are close to others, you can protect yourself. So people work in the labs wearing masks all the time. And when I walk out of my office, I wear a mask too. And the research right now continues as it was before COVID. We don't have any disruption anymore.
So we got to keep helping make this cancer research happen, right? So, and
I think again, the research is one thing that continues, but COVID has affected cancer patients disproportionately in many ways, made it more difficult for them. Some of them didn't go to get diagnosis. We missed cancers. It had a very bad impact because people were afraid to go, and still are. And that's a very bad side effect because cancer doesn't wait. If you have a diagnosis of cancer, you need to treat it. Whether there is COVID or not. So that's a message that I've been sending out all the time, and I have been on TV a few times and I said the same. And it's important, but it is important to support cancer research more than ever because there has been this negative effect of COVID on top of anything else. So.
that's great. So before we start talking about COVID, does anyone have any questions to Dr. Platanias about the cancer focus of Northwestern or anything else? Okay, no. So
Eleni, do you want to make any comments or anything? Or?
I think I made all my comments yesterday when we were on the Zoom call together. I just want to say, Dr. Platanias, that I thank you and I thank the entire board for being strong advocates of your research. I know you have a phenomenal team and we're very proud to support cancer research. We discussed a few methods of how we will proceed from now on, how our foundation is going to advocate about spreading new trials. I know that I've introduced you to a few young people that were diagnosed with cancer. As we know, this pandemic has created a domino effect, a very negative domino effect, I want to say, on people's health. Young people, as we've shared, many of those new patients did not seek to go to a doctor to see why they were having different symptoms. And lo and behold, they were diagnosed with 3 and 4 stage cancer, which you were very willingly able to connect them with the appropriate doctor to serve. But at the same time, I just want to say to the young people, if you do feel anything or any of your friends, please call Dr. Platanias, go get help. It's devastating to see that every single day, I don't know if it's a pandemic, I don't know if it's a shutdown. I am terrified to pick up my phone because there's always a young person, and it's very sad that it's not people over 60. I mean, these are young people between 30 to 60 that are calling me seeking for a cancer oncologist. It's very sad. I don't know if it's people that have heard about the foundation, they've heard how we're advocating trials, how we're advocating everything that's happening at Northwestern at our research center with our top team. It's heartbreaking as a mother, as a woman, it's heartbreaking what is happening. And I wish I was in a position to be able to tell everyone that calls me that you're going to be fine, and we will seek the appropriate doctor for you, and you will overcome this monster. It's very, very hard. It's very hard, you know, how it's evolving. It's a monster, I think, that doesn't choose whether you're wealthy, whether you're poor, whether you're homeless, whether you're, it's like, it's, I want to say, a huge bubble that's ready to burst. So please, to all the young people that are listening, reach out to your doctors if you feel that you have a symptom that you're not right, something is wrong. The fastest you approach this, the better off you will be. I love all of you. I care for all of you. I don't want to cry, but to me, it's a very emotional time. It's a very emotional time to see young people being diagnosed with the cancer more than ever. More than ever. I don't know how Dr. Platanias feels about this. He sees it more often than what I do. But Dr. Platanias, do you feel that there is more young people right now being diagnosed with cancer? And why? What's the reason behind it? Because all these years that we have established this foundation and other foundations that I've been involved with, I have not heard so many young people being diagnosed with cancer. So what do you think is the cause of it?
Yeah, I don't have a good answer to this right now. I think that again with COVID, we had many things that have gone wrong in that direction. Again, some people didn't seek care and they come in more advanced cases. Uh, you know, younger people, I don't, you know, it may be more likely that someone ignored it. So I don't know the answer to this. This is a big study that the NCI is putting together now. We are doing an analysis of our own cancer patients here at Northwestern. We just got the data yesterday. We have about 400 something patients we had with cancer who had COVID also. And we're gonna do an analysis to see what was the impact. And we should be able to publish that soon. So we live in a time that things have been done, you know, they have gone the wrong way for cancer patients. And I just, and cancer is already at baseline a very terrible problem to have. So we need to come out of this as soon as possible and try to help our patients.
With that, with what you just said now, you said we need to come out of this.
Okay, I could be the introduction to the next.
Yes, you know, we need to come out of this.
Yeah.
Please tell us, what do you foresee?
Yeah,
For the,
I will show
future,
you
the near future. We don't want to, you know,
okay.
we want to talk about the near future.
I will show you. I have slides that I can show you and show you where we are, and I think we should do this. But let me say this: I think we are. Let's imagine that we were in a war, like the Vietnam War or World War II, and we are in the last few months. I think that's how it is. We know that we have vaccines right now that will eventually stop the pandemic, but this has not happened yet. The war is still ongoing. And if you go back and look in the history of the wars that this country went through, many people died in the last few months. And as someone, a famous politician said, how do you tell someone to be the last person to die in a war? So I think the fact that we have vaccines and there is light at the end of the tunnel now we know that this will be controlled, should make us more careful. We don't want to be the last ones that, you know, will be affected by this, or we will, you know, people may die from this because we know that this will stop at some point. So I want to emphasize, and I do that all the time, but because we are close now to a solution, relatively close, in the next few months, I think it's even more important to be super careful, wear masks, avoid, you know, if you meet with someone, wear a mask, avoid meetings as much as possible. I know it's not pleasant, but we know you will meet your friends. In a few months, this will be gone. It is so important, and you will see the numbers right now have gone to really high levels. And this is like, it's like the last thing that this pandemic does before it will begin. It's like, it gets very worse right now, but we know it will be controlled. So, and I know there are many people who get sick right now. I get many calls every day, some quite sick actually. So that's why it makes me very nervous when I see friends and people I care with, because they get tired. Everybody's so tired with this pandemic. But it is so important to be careful now, the last few months, until the vaccines come out and until it is controlled, because that's what will save lives. And I urge all of you to do that now. You know, I'm confident that we will get out. This pandemic is going to end in the next few months. So the important thing is to protect, for everyone to protect themselves until this happens, you know.
Dr. Platanias, I heard on the news that they said that the first vaccines have arrived in Chicago with United.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm supposed to be, I will be, they will vaccinate first doctors. So I will be in the first.
That's what they said. They said that they will be vaccinating the 10th of December, the 15th of December. They gave some dates. And they said that they would start first with doctors, first responders, healthcare, nursing homes, people that are high risk. How do you feel as a doctor if someone came now to you and said, Dr. Platanias, we have the vaccine, it will work, will you take it? Would you take it? Would you trust the FDA?
Yeah.
Since we have heard so many complex stories. CDC a week ago said that you can quarantine now 7 to 10 days. Before it was 15 and beyond. Now they're saying 7 to 10. Then they're saying, well, wear your mask, but they were talking about children not going to school. And yesterday, Fauci said, well, no, children need to go back to school. They need to articulate. They need to be around their peers. Children are getting depressed. So when you hear all this mixed signals from CDC, from the FDA, from the government, from the medical physicians, from scientists, how do you feel as a scientist, as a doctor, as an oncologist, and as a human being? Because above all, you are a human being.
So, you know, first of all, people make mistakes all the time. The important thing is to recognize your mistake and to correct it and not to stick with this. I have complete trust, 100% trust to both the FDA and the CDC now. Now that is, you know, it started operating in a good way. I like what I hear from them. They have the numbers changed because they didn't know before. It used to be 14 days. Now the number is 10 days. But if it is a serious COVID case, it's 20 days. They have detailed things. The 7 days is only if you get a test that is negative. The point is that if someone has COVID, you really don't want to interact with these people for a couple of weeks, which is about the same, 10, 14. And if someone had very serious COVID longer than that, I have been advising people who I communicate all the time, and I know this. So that's not, I mean, there is experience that has been learned. The FDA, the director of the FDA is a cancer doctor who used to be at MD Anderson. We know him, I trust him 100%. He's a very high, he's a really has high ethics, is totally honest, and they're doing a great job. They're being pushed right now, but within a few days they will have the approval. They have to go to analyze 70,000 people, you know, and if they make a mistake and they give a vaccine that will kill people, then, you know, nobody will trust anymore anything. It's going to be totally crazy. So, but I think they have moved very fast as they can. They have done a good job, and I have complete trust on what the FDA will say. I know that I have been at the FDA right before COVID. We were a bunch of cancer center directors. We were at the FDA. We had no idea then about what is going to happen with COVID. And we were talking about cancer treatments and how we're going to move things. And all of a sudden, this thing happened. So they are good people at the FDA. They are real scientists, and we need to trust them.
So will you take the vaccine? If they came to
I
you
would,
today, would you take the vaccine?
I will take it yesterday. If the FDA approves it, I will take it immediately. And I will take it because I think that the doctors, they will offer it to us. It won't be, I haven't heard anything for December, but I'm pretty sure we will be in the first group of people here at Northwestern, and I will take it right away, both because I have to, but even if I didn't have to, I will take it. I will trust it 100%. The data are very impressive with these vaccines. This 95% rate that they're talking about, that's amazing. We don't get this. This is really good vaccines out there. So, and I haven't heard any serious toxicity, anything real bad. So I think this is a game-changing situation, these vaccines.
Dr. Platanias, is there evidence for long-lasting immunity?
That's a very good question. I think they plan to give 2 doses. And there have been some cases of people who had COVID and then they got reinfected again. So we don't know that for sure, but there will be a boost, and the data, at least for the first few months, were remarkable. Whoever got the vaccine didn't get COVID and didn't get serious COVID. So we know that this protects for some period. And probably then you can boost again with a second, that's, and that may be all you need. You may need for this vaccine to last for a while, so COVID gets out of the population. The problem will be if there is a large group of people, especially in the US, who decide not to take the vaccine because they don't trust vaccines or whatever. That will be very destructive and may keep the pandemic here. That's what I'm worried, because the anti-vaccination movement that is really anti-science, they are terrible, and don't believe if you hear from them. They do a lot of damage, and that's the biggest fear, that there is a significant group of the population that they will not go for the vaccine.
So it's not going to be mandatory from the feds.
The vaccine cannot be mandatory. No, it will be mandatory for doctors, and it should be mandatory. If you want to work in a hospital, you should be getting, but it will not be for the feds.
Because you hear a lot of nurses, Dr. Platanias, they say that I don't trust them. I will not take the vaccine. It's my legal right. I will not sign to take it. How do you feel about those people that, they do work at medical facilities and they
have no idea what they're talking. And if they say things like this, they should not be near a medical facility. These people are dangerous and they go and I know they go on the social media. There was a nurse the other day that was saying there, these people are dangerous. This is not based on science. They can talk convincingly. They say a few things there. And the reality is that vaccines are safe. This has been tested to so many people, and it's going to stop COVID. So many people have died from COVID. So these people are irresponsible, and we should not be hearing them. That's my advice for that.
Dr. Platanias, this is Charlene Seaman and Scott Seaman. We're here. Scott and Charlene, we're here.
Yeah, hi. Yeah.
Hi. I wanted to ask a question because I don't know if you've heard anything out of the UK, but they already started their vaccine. Yeah. So I don't know if you've heard, what their, how many people have been vaccinated, or, some of the, side effects that they're getting. I know they're in clinical trials and everything, but, I was just wondering if you heard anything about the UK.
So the UK, the equivalent of the FDA in the UK has lower standards than our FDA. So they approved it faster. It's like a week earlier, and they're just starting the vaccinations now. But there have been already large clinical trials that involve, tens of thousands of people in each trial. So there are very many people who have gotten the vaccine, the different vaccines. There are 3 or 4 that will be approved, and they all seem to be pretty safe, nothing unusual. and very effective. So it was a big surprise to me. I did not expect that these vaccines will be so effective.
Is the Oxford one, is this the one that does not have to be kept in a very cold?
Yes.
Okay.
So the cold one, it is the Pfizer one. That one needs to be kept in the -8, extremely low temperatures. It's more difficult to transport and everything, but it's 95% effective. The other one from Moderna is also 95% effective without this issue. And there is a third one that was tried in Oxford that has also high efficiency. So
is this the one from Oxford? The one that's already been given to people?
in Europe, I think that's what they do. But again, all of them have been given in large trials, tens of thousands. So
Johnson & Johnson has one, I heard this morning.
I'm sorry?
Johnson & Johnson, I heard this morning, has one.
There are many. There are more coming. There will be 3 or 4 more. AstraZeneca has one. But we know already these 3 that are really active. So if you want me, I can show you briefly some slides and then come back for questions. Is that okay? Or
Sure.
Okay, Valerie, can you please start the show? So I just want to show you what's going on, okay? And again, the reason is what I was saying before, that although we know this will stop, let's see where we are. Let's go to the next slide. So here you can see now what's going on in the United States. And you can see in the top panel, you can see how it was in April and May. These are new cases per day. Then we had the second wave around July and August, and things got worse then. But look where we are right now. And this, I haven't put the numbers from the last couple of days, is now 200,000. It has really gone all the way up. So what we are seeing right now is far more spread than we ever had before. Now, and this is the cases. In the lower panel, you see the people who died from COVID. And you see at the beginning, when people didn't know how to treat COVID, we had a lot of deaths. It was 2,000 deaths, around a little over 2,000, then went down. But now, today, they reported the highest number of deaths ever, 2,500. It doesn't show in this diagram. But you can see that things are getting bad. Although we know how to treat COVID better, the number of cases is so much and is resulting to more deaths, unfortunately. Let's go to the next slide.
I have a quick question on this data before we move
Yeah,
on.
go ahead, go back.
So when I bring this up to general people in the public, sometimes there's pushback that says, this data is manipulated, or that COVID deaths are overreported. And I want to know what safeguards you have at Northwestern, against fraud. Or...
So let me this is another thing that has been, and many people believe, you don't know, and you hear that there is this lie, because it was totally incorrect. The doctors can charge more if there is a COVID case. That everybody, I even thought, wow, could that be true? It's not true. The way they bill has nothing to do with the diagnosis. This was completely false information. But if you hear it and you don't know, you think this is true. The doctors were making up COVID cases to get more money. This is false. It's totally wrong. And it is actually shameful that this was even said. It's not true. Now, the cases, you have to think it like this. If you, let's say you have heart disease and you walk on the street and you get hit by a car and you die, what kills you? The heart disease or the car? The car. And that's exactly what we have. We have patients who have underlying diseases, but they will not die from them, but then they get COVID and they die. And so the argument that some make that these people had a bad disease, but it was a bad disease. No, it's this example of what I said. The data that you see here are accurate. They're from Johns Hopkins, They have been analyzed by serious scientists. And there have been people in the internet that come and say whatever they want. But these are the real data, and we have to believe in science, you know. The good thing here is you can see that the number of deaths have dropped for a while because we know how to treat the disease better. But the problem is right now the death numbers are going up because the cases are so many. So unfortunately, that's the reality. A few months from now, hopefully both of these diagrams will go back to zero. You know, the COVID will be controlled, we will not be around, and we'll be all gone. But the reality right now is that it's a serious threat. And we really have to believe the science, not the people saying things left and right, you know. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. So can we go to the next slide? So here now you can see Illinois. We have again the same cases, the same situation. You have the numbers are much higher than they used to be in April and May and in the summer. And the number of deaths, unfortunately, have reached a new high also in the state. Next slide. And here is what happens all over the world. This is not just in the US. There has been like, this is the total number of cases, newly diagnosed cases. The problem is worldwide, is not just in the US. And I think we all know that. Next slide. But there are some countries that are don't do well, like Brazil. You see it goes up and down. Now they are on an upward trajectory like us. Next slide. But if you look Germany, they have although it went up significantly, these are big numbers there too, but at least the last month and a half, they have slowed it down, you know, so there is a way to control it better than what we have done here so far. Next slide. And if you look at France, they had a very serious peak in November. Now they did a very strict lockdown there and they brought it down again. So one way or the other, the disease can be controlled, you know, this crazy spreading. Next slide.
Platanias,
Yeah.
why do you think in different parts of the world, it's very low and then there's a huge spike?
Yeah, no, that's a very
climate. What is it? Because you see this, look at France. I mean, it's right next to Germany. It's I mean, they're all connected. Why is this such a huge difference?
Yeah, no, I think in both cases they went up high, but is what you say is really dramatic. If you look, these countries had completely controlled COVID. July and August, there was nothing. And then all of a sudden you see September, October, and November, boom, all the way up.
So what do you think has caused it? Is it climate? What is it?
I think it's two things. One is because is this people getting tired of COVID and they drop their guard down and they say, oh, you know, we control it, it won't come back. And the other thing is obviously the climate, as you say, because when the weather gets cold, there are more people inside. And we know as a fact that the transmission is much higher when you are inside the place. You know, so in the summer, there were many people outside. Although it can be transmitted outside, it's much more dangerous in closed, you know, spaces. By the way, there was a case today from Korea. I don't have it in the slide about a restaurant in Korea that there was they tracked three, you know, there was one COVID patient and they tracked three patients, three other people who got COVID by eating in the same restaurant. And one of them was 20 feet apart and he never came closer and still got COVID. It was a closed restaurant with bad circulation. And nobody was wearing masks, of course, they were eating there. But that's the point, that if you are in closed spaces, the 6 feet probably doesn't apply, even can be more, you know, the spread depending on the airflow and other things. Can we put the next slide? So, and I want to give here, you know, let's this is, I'm sorry, this thing about South Dakota is for the next slide. But here you can see that the US, we have gone really high up. And again, the numbers were up in Europe. They're turning around. We haven't turned around here, still in the US. So hopefully this will happen. Next slide. And here I want to make the point that, go to the next one for a second. No, okay, go back. Anyway, this is probably, it is one slide after that that is missing. But this moment, the Dakotas are the part of the world with the highest mortality rate everywhere in the world. In fact, it's South Dakota. North Dakota instituted a mask mandate after they've seen the numbers going up and they are improving. South Dakota is the only state in the country with no mask mandate and has the highest mortality anywhere in the world compared to any other part of the world, the mortality per population. So it doesn't show well here in this slide, but what I'm trying, the point I want to make here, and I want everyone to remember, is wear a mask. It, you know, masks protect the person who wears it and others. And we know by tons of data right now that both at the national and international level and at the practical level, I say it here all the time, if you wear a mask, you're protected and you protect others. And I want to make sure nobody forgets that. That's why I wanted to show this. We have them. So we can take the slides off, Valerie.
Doctor, that's a lot of interesting information. And I have to say, it's a privilege to see you again. You look especially handsome today. And we thank God for you. I have a few questions for you. First of all, if there were 3 vials, one of each of the first 3 vaccines that will be made available, put on your desk, and you had the choice of being able to select among them, what would you pick?
So what are the choices? I want to make sure you tell me.
Moderna, Pfizer, and Johnson.
What was the first one?
Oxford, Moderna, and Pfizer.
I will take the Moderna first, and the Pfizer second. The reason is both of them report 95% efficacy, and the Moderna is easier to transport, meaning there is probably a smaller chance, although that will be 0 with Pfizer too, but theoretically, that if something went wrong in the transport and the temperature didn't, something happened, the Moderna vaccine would be affected less. The Pfizer has the same efficacy, but theoretically, it could be more sensitive to other things. But either of these two are the same. The other one in Oxford, it is, the numbers were a little lower, you know, but for some groups of people, it was the same. So practically, I will take any of them, but if you force me to pick one, I will pick the Moderna. So,
okay, if there is there any category of patient that you would advise against taking a vaccine? Anybody with contraindications?
well, for, you know, this type of vaccine, the way this vaccine is not dangerous. Some vaccines can be can cause problems in patients with compromised immune system if they are live vaccines, but these are not like that. These are against a piece of the virus, so they're not dangerous. So I don't think there is any group I will advise against. The only possibility is if in some autoimmune diseases, I will at least make sure they're autoimmune. If there is some strong immune reaction, very rare stuff, things that we don't see, I will make sure the doctor is on board. But no, I wouldn't. It is possible that in some patients, it may not be as effective. If they are on immunosuppression, the vaccine may not work as well, but I don't think it will be harmful in any way, which will be the concern.
as doctors, myself and Peter, doctors of law, and Christine as a doctor of dentistry, will we be among the first to be offered the vaccine?
I think it's the best.
That was a good try, but I don't think so. No, I don't think so.
And not to challenge you on this point, and I'm not suggesting there's any fraud by categorization, but I have read a lot of articles and seen, and it could all be fake news, that CMS has reimbursed higher for COVID patients, particularly those that are on a ventilator, and that part of that is because of the federal legislation giving funding. Is that false?
I think it's really, again, very bad, and I know you don't mean it yourself, but the doctors, to imply that the doctors who were treating the cancer patients, and many of them died. Don't forget, there are patients, many doctors have died treating COVID because they got COVID themselves. So to the CMS, you may be right on this. The reimbursement may be higher to the hospital, but the doctor has no motive to do that. You know, it's like nobody on earth will go to change something to COVID. And the way the system works is not something that doctors can manipulate. It's not like a small practice group. This is a different thing. They're in the hospital, intubated in the units. And again, I really think this, and I know, and I'm not saying, I know it's not from you, Scott, but this concept out there that some doctors will defraud the system and make up diagnosis of COVID to make more money doesn't stand both at the practical level, the way finances, the flow of finances, and again, and by the fact that so many died. So it was a very unfortunate thing that this theory came out there, and it's not true. It's simply not. It cannot be true.
I don't think doctors would do that at all, and I don't even think, the inference is that there was any defrauding done, but simply economics. If a hospital administrator, because of the funding laws, are allowed to list COVID among other things, and that impacts reimbursement, they have fiduciary duty. A lot of our conduct is not.
Yeah, but it's not doable. It's not possible either, because the death certificate is signed by the doctor, and the death certificate lists the cause of death, So it is not really possible, I think what has happened is the number of COVID deaths is higher than what we know right now, because at the beginning of the pandemic, before the test came available, sometime in March, April, we were testing very little then, and many people died then. The mortality rate was very high. So, and many of these deaths were not called COVID, although they were COVID. So I'm personally convinced that the number of deaths is higher than the estimated number. The 270 is in my opinion, is over 300 in reality, but if they were not coded as COVID then, because there were no tests and nobody could diagnose COVID, So.
And we're seeing a lot of evidence now of a pretty significant percentage of the population that had COVID back in December.
Exactly. No, exactly. That's the whole point. And there were many patients who were dying in the death certificate. It may say ARDS, acute respiratory distress syndrome, which is what happens to the lungs. But there were no COVID tests then, so the diagnosis will be just it will never be COVID. It will be something else, unknown factor causing that. So.
Lady, I want to go back to what you were talking about in the beginning about young people and not finding out that they've got cancer. There's not a lot that's published that we read about that will show that young people are getting diagnosed. They're in denial about a lot of things, these young people, and they think that they're fine because everything we're talking about is either people that have a condition or seniors, people that are compromised. And in all the press even about COVID, there's nothing. So they think that they're fine. And, you know,
Yeah.
they're not paying attention. We're not publicizing, you know, between the ages of 25 and 35, how many cases of cancer and things like that.
But the reality, though, is that young people, the incidence of cancer is much lower in young people. Cancer is also a disease of aging, you know.
Yeah.
It really goes up as people age. So I don't think there is a huge problem there with a missing diagnosis of young people. But we'll see, you know, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, because Eleni seemed to think that, you know, there's a
No,
lot.
I know, but I'm not sure there are data like that. Yeah, I think Eleni, she gets a lot of calls, and there were a series of calls that involved young people, and it looks like, I know many of them she called me. It looks like there was a large number, but this is a limited number. We need to look much more, you know.
But the young people are still in denial about anything that's going on.
Yeah, that's a different story altogether. I mean, that's, and many of them are responsible for spreading COVID too.
Yeah, I see it when I go food shopping, you know, they'll stand next to you and you'll say, please social distance. Oh, sorry, and just stand there. Don't move.
Yeah, can I add something to the, as far as the young people getting, because Scott and I actually did radio and TV show on this. As far as younger people getting breast cancer, because it's estrogen, provocative, like, so I mean, and that goes back to younger people taking, and I have so many friends in their 30s that were diagnosed with breast cancer, which years ago, doctors didn't look at that, and there's more breast cancer now in younger people because they started using the pill when they were younger, and it's escalated into more people. And I have so many friends who had double mastectomies because of it, and they're in their 30s and 40s. So I think there is I don't know, from what we talked to different doctors on our radio and TV show, that there actually is a higher incident with breast cancer in younger patients, which there won't be.
I promise I will go and look into that. The next time we have this meeting, I will. That may well be. I was not aware, but I'm going to look it up, and we'll see what are the data. And
thank you.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good point, and it's worth looking at it. Thank you.
Dr. Platanias,
there's also a lot of male breast cancer that is, you know, being advertised, and it should be, which is
well, male breast cancer has been all along out there, but for some reason it has been some sort of a taboo or something, and people
it's 5 o'clock.
Hello.
Is that God?
Hello, Cheryl. That's Cheryl from New York.
Hello, how are you?
How are you, Cheryl?
Thank you, Alani, for having me today. May I ask you a question, doctor?
Cool.
The intensity of the vaccine is supposed to be 95%. So if you were exposed to someone who still has the COVID with not many symptoms, are you still completely protected? Because if you have a flu vaccine, you cannot have the flu with such intensity. So not to take your guard down even after we get the vaccine?
That's a very good point. With the flu, the protection of the flu vaccine is about 50%, right? Or in some cases, it goes all the way down to 30%. So the flu vaccine doesn't really protect you well. It protects a little bit, okay? But that little bit may save your life, you know? It's definitely worth taking the flu vaccine. Now, the data with the COVID vaccines is that it is higher, that is 95%. That means, though, if you go to large numbers, even when it is 95%, the US has 300 million people. Let's say all of them will take it, and that will leave 15 million people that, despite taking the vaccine, will get COVID. So your point is very well taken. People, you know, although the vaccine will start for some period, people will need to maintain all the protective things they do. But at some point, you know, that's the thing, there will be herd immunity, induced by the vaccine now, you know, a good herd immunity that will eventually make COVID to be less common than what we have now. That's the hope, you know. That will require a large number of the population taking the vaccine. And in the meantime, they will need to keep all the protection and everything, masks and everything else.
Exactly. And what do you think of this remdesivir?
Yeah, remdesivir is an antiviral drug. Pretty much anyone who gets COVID right now gets it. If they have a little serious case, it's very available. It's not very impressive. It has some activity, but it's not that great. So it helps a little bit some people. I would definitely recommend it if someone has COVID. But it's not that, it's better than other drugs that we won't bring here. I'm looking at Scott.
So good, you could say them, but it does work very well for our president. And you know, to Eleni's question, sort of a follow-up, she talked about forced vaccination. And so my question is, we're hearing talk that airlines in other countries are beginning to come up with policies that say, well, unless you have proof of vaccination or certificate of vaccination, you can't go on our airline. And one could see a bunch of businesses doing the same thing. What are your thoughts about, you know, private sector restrictions and requiring proof of vaccination? And a lot of people, especially with Bill Gates's Moderna, there's a lot of wild stuff out there about there being chips or ways to track people. I take it there's no validity to that.
Of course not. Of course. Please. I mean, that gets to.
There is a chip in Sweden. They're already using it.
Well, not in the vaccines. I really think, please, not with the vaccines.
I could see Charlene forcing me to take the vaccine if it has a chip in it.
Okay, there are not chips in the vaccines. Please don't. I think this is almost like a joke. But I'm going to give you a real life answer for the other question. The other day, you know, Diana Salero, who works in my group and got the award this year, Eleni. So she was talking to me and she told me, I'm going with my family to Portugal. And I said, what? She said, I have to see my parents I'm going to go to Christmas to Portugal. And I said, what are you doing? You know, don't you see COVID, all that stuff? And she convinced me because she said, the Portugal Airlines that she will use require everyone to take the test and be negative within 24 hours. And then they have really spread out, only very few people. I still think it's a mistake. I told her not to go. She's not listening to me. She will go. But I think it's a good thing that they enforce. I know some people will perceive this as limitations of liberty, whatever. Well, it's not. You don't have to fly. It's the same thing like wearing a seatbelt. You want to fly or you want to drive, wear a seatbelt. You don't have to drive. It's your choice. And I think it's a very good idea that some airlines, at least European airlines, are doing this because it may help the economy too. Business may keep going, you know, by people traveling if they feel safe. So, you know, I think it's a good idea. I know there are different views on that. But
no, I think it's a very good idea because most of these airlines put them on the honor system.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. What?
I said, I think it's a very good idea because most of these airlines put them on the honor system.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm not saying everyone is saying anything wrong, but I happen to know people who sent their children home from university and they said, get on the next plane and we'll take care of you at home. Now,
that's how we have, you know, that's how COVID spreads, you know, that's
exactly.
And we haven't seen, the dangerous thing is we are still, Thanksgiving was how many days now? 7 days. So we haven't seen the peak of what is going to happen. with the Thanksgiving travel, which was a very bad thing. Too many people traveled, and that results directly in deaths. People will die from this. And it's really sad, especially because we have now vaccines coming up that will control the situation. And I'm really worried for Christmas and all that stuff coming up.
Dr. Platanias, how soon will it take to vaccinate the American people in the United States? How soon will it take? And how long will it take, the process?
It's hard to answer. I don't know, but I suspect within 2 or 3 months it can be done for
Then
whoever
why-
wants it, you know.
Then why does the news today say, even if everyone gets vaccinated by April, they will have to wear a mask for the rest of next year? Why do they say that if it's so
Because-
promising?
Yeah, because first of all, we don't know how many people will be vaccinated. There will be in the U.S. Unfortunately, we have a large group, an anti-vax movement that don't believe in vaccines.
That's
and
what
do
I
a lot
got.
of, and they do a lot of damage because then they make it harder to control COVID.
So
If they
how
don't-
are we going to convince those people
I don't know.
they have to be vaccinated for the sake of the entire world?
I don't know. I don't know. These people are very dangerous, and they have some celebrities among them, and it's really very unfortunate that they exist, and they have various theories that are not true. So I don't know.
Caning is the only
Dr.
real
Dr.
solution.
Dr. You'd said that you touched on that you're concerned that around Christmas it's going to spike.
I think there will be 2 spikes, one from Thanksgiving, which we haven't seen yet, and then Christmas and New Year's could be even worse. So, people don't want to face reality. They don't. Everybody thinks it won't happen to me, but that's not the way to operate. We have to see that as society. First of all, we should care about others. And we should remember that it can happen to anyone at any time,
How do we convince the people that are having a great time in Florida and they're all partying and they're all out, that they have to slow down and start thinking about the person next to them?
You don't want to hear my opinion because you won't be popular. I
No,
think
we
they should.
want to hear you because,
Well, I think we should do what they do in Europe. In Europe, they give them a big fine. You break the law, but here people don't want to do that. They're afraid, liberty, the one, the other. I think people who disregard, it's the same thing with seatbelts. If you are caught driving without a seatbelt, or if you're caught driving drunk, you get in big trouble. That should be the same for this thing here, because this is even more deadly. More people have died from this pandemic than car accidents,
Yes, people feel the pain in their pocket or if someone dies, that's all.
Yeah.
In the old days, like with my mother, she had scarlet fever, and in the old days, they actually, quarantined your house, and you couldn't leave your house because people wouldn't go in or wouldn't go out. And I know that's a liberties thing and civil rights thing, but that's what they did in those days because they didn't have cures for scarlet fever, typhoid, or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
And the liberty thing, people who make the argument that this is a liberty thing about the mask. Again, there are many examples in the civilized society that they have to follow the rules. One example, seat belts, don't drive drunk. But even let's say it was a pure liberty issue, how free can you be if you die? Or if you are on a respirator, and they are for a month on a respirator, on a ventilator. These people simply don't think. They just want to be difficult. That's my opinion. Because
Well, sometimes a little interruption of liberty, like for example, to wear a mask, prevents bigger interruptions of such as shutdown. And I just have to say, Doctor, and to Eleni and everybody, what a magnificent virtual gala it was
And
as good.
Nicole, and Nicole.
And you know, we love Nicole. She's like sunshine. But everybody who went out there, watched your TVs, donated, and contributed to you and your fine team, that's really the answer for all of us, because you do real science and you do it in a fast, proper, and serious way. And God bless you.
It was a
No, thank you
wonderful
so
team
much.
effort from everybody.
Thank you so much. I thought I have seen a lot of virtual events. This was by far the best and most impressive. There is no, it was remarkable. And thank you to Eleni, of course, and everyone else who contributed to that. It was a big, big deal.
And all the royalty. I mean, you had Eleni, you had
God,
Christine,
I
you
love
had Nicole, and then we had the magnificent princess herself of Serbia, Catherine, who, by the way, Eleni, does she have a crown?
I don't know how many pounds she's got, really. I can't answer
She's
that.
Greek, by the way. Did you know that she's Greek? She
Yes,
called me the
yeah.
other day. She speaks Greek to me when she called.
Yes, this is Greek, born in Greece.
On that note, Cheryl and I had gone to Prince Alexander's 70th birthday party. Cheryl, was it?
70
8-9 years ago. And both of us had not seen so many queens and kings and princes, and they're like the king of this, the king of that. And we're looking at each other like, man, there are more kings in this world. They're just a little bit.
Well, you know, they're all interrelated, so it's extraordinary to see them all together when we were there.
Yeah, it was.
That's how they hold the crowns.
Yeah, that's why I said, Dr. Platanias, thank you so much for your comment for the virtual gala. I think it was very impressive that people for once heard what the Hippocratic Cancer Research Foundation's mission is. They viewed your doctors, they heard your doctors, they heard what we are doing every minute with every penny that people donate to our foundation. It's not going to any positions. It's not going to the corporation. It's not going anywhere. It is funded directly to you and the research center and your incredible team.
I thank you, and I can the only thing I can promise you, as I have been saying all the time, is that we do the very best we can, and this has impact. It really makes a difference in our efforts to find new treatments for cancer. So thank you again.
But I have to say thank you to all of you doctors, because I know if anyone calls you at any time, you will pick up the phone no matter where you are in the world, because you're a very busy person flying all over the place. I know that Dr. Stoop, because whether we like it or not, you guys are the top in the world. Dr. Stoop, everyone uses the Stoop theory in the world to detect brain tumors. And I know the man is always hands-on. Every time you call him, he jumps and he says, if I'm there, I'll be more than happy to see someone. Dr. Greta Shire, Dr. Maha, whether we like to admit it or not, these are the top doctors in the world that you have on your team. And yet they're all human beings. I have not heard any of them at any time say no to a patient that really wants to see them. And that is a great testimonial of who your team is. You have put an amazing team together, and you should be congratulated for.
Thank you.
And the team is happy to see people, and it's not like you have to wait months to see them. It's just pretty incredible, right away.
Well, the Northwestern mission statement is patients first, and we try to have it in practice. That's why we are doctors. Otherwise, why be a doctor?
But it's also no, Dr. Platanias, it's also your team, because I have dealt with a lot of doctors, and it's your team. Your team is just unreal. they're good human beings. They're good souls where they really care in making a difference.
Thank you.
And doctor, I looked at your CV recently, which is as impressive as it can be, but there is a serious omission. I think in addition to your other titles, you should have on there the King of Curing Cancer. And I propose that at next year's live gala, we present you with a crown.
He has promised they will eradicate cancer. And look at what we did last year. Look at what we funded last year. Whoever thought that we would ever, fund such amazing research for brain cancer? So we are doing remarkable things, everyone. Every penny helps and every penny goes into great use.
Scott, I disagree with you. I think we should make Dr. Platanias dictator for life of cancer research.
Please, I have no interest in this position. I don't want to be a dictator. That's the last thing I want to be.
I hope we resolve the dispute in an American way and vote on it. And we'll have Charlene in charge of election integrity.
I have to say, Susan Gottfried is also on. I did not even see Susan's name. And Susan was with us with Cheryl at Prince Alexander's birthday. And I know we were all talking about all the crowns and all the kings and everyone. So Susan, you can jump in a little bit. I don't know if you're still on, and say how your experience was, since Scott wants to know. Are you there? Can't hear you.
Maybe she has the mute button on, possibly.
So Nicole,
Yes.
as the person who leads these discussions so brilliantly, I'm thinking that for future segments, we could start the introduction with live from his throne at Northwestern University.
Yes, in
Either
Chicago.
King of Curing
Do
Cancer
that.
or the dictator. Yes.
We will do that, but you know what? Unfortunately, we have
Oh,
to
don't.
end this. We have to end this, but it's been so inspiring to see everyone. Like, look at us all coming together. In 2 weeks, we can continue this discussion because, the fight isn't over. So please, everybody come in 2 weeks. COVID's constantly changing and we're getting updates and, we are making a difference. Look what we did with our virtual gala. And we still have more work to do. So I hope we can see everybody in 2 weeks. Thanks, Dr. Platanias. And
the only thing I want to say is be very, very careful. Again, I want to emphasize there is more COVID outside. There is more people with COVID right now. And the risk is higher than ever before. So please be extremely careful if you have to go outside. Wear masks, stay far away from people. And this is going to get better, okay?
Thank God we have you on a speed dial. Knock on wood if something happens to us and we need.
You know how to find it. So
I just need to ask one question. As far as the virtual gala, how much was the total that we raised in after the live auction and stuff?
So far, it's over 600,000, right, Nicole?
Yeah.
Katina and them. We don't have the final number because people are still donating, believe it or not.
Okay, well, that's good.
Well, that's brilliant to be able to raise that amount in a virtual.
Yes, I mean, that's
Bravo.
outstanding.
And Dr. Platania said to us, I'll never forget, he goes, that's okay. Even if we raise 100,000, it's good for us.
Oh, wow.
And we-
I mean, you look at all the.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I mean, that's tremendous, tremendous.
Congratulations to everyone's hard work, everyone who believes in our mission and our vision. So thank you.
And thanks to you, our wonderful leader.
I love
And maybe you want to end with a quote from me, Lainey.
Go ahead, Scott.
No. I mean, you quoting me. That's what I love the most.
oh yeah, in the
Wasn't
gala.
that brilliant?
Any more quotes and we're going to see soon live from New York at Saturday Night Live and you'll be on it.
Cheryl and Susan will have us live from New York.
Absolutely. Come right to the studio.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
thank you.
Thank you for
Bye-bye.
having
Thank
Take
you.
care. See
Bye,
everybody in
everyone.
2 weeks. See
Love you
everyone in
guys.
2 weeks. Bye-bye.
Stay safe.
Stay safe.